In a fast-paced world where things are changing rapidly, the landscape is constantly being disrupted, it's easy to get off kilter, right? We're just out of balance and we're not at our best, you know? And in our work as executive coaches, when we're dealing with leaders, we often find leaders are getting out of balance, right? Off center, right? I noticed this in a coaching conversation as a leader would come in and begin talking. And I noticed their breath, you know, how the speed at which they're speaking, you know, how their thoughts are maybe distracted in terms of how they're communicating to me. And so one of the things I will do is point out to them and notice this and create awareness for them about the fact of where are they and that they seem to be off center from my perspective, and invite them to think about how do they center themselves. And so what do we mean by being centered? It's really being calm, you know, but yet alert and active and present in the moment to be at your best, right, as a leader. Because failure to be centered leads to inefficiencies, ineffectiveness. And if you think about from a leadership perspective, you are the center of attention. So you need to be centered yourself and be attentive to yourself. So be at your best. So the question really is, how do you go about centering yourself?
Yeah. And you know, there's probably a number of paths up this mountain to being centered. And so you may have your own practice already, but we would say that there's essentially 3 fundamentals that I know, Rick, you have a different practice than I might have, right? But we're always looking, number one, at the awareness piece first, right? So how aware are we that we're even off-center to begin with? Well, if we know that in order to be aware that we're off center, we actually have to be aware what it feels like when we're actually centered, right? So that's 2 different, that sounds very logical, but you would be surprised how many leaders are just so much living in the hormones of stress that they've forgotten what it feels like to truly be centered. And I don't mean centered meditating on a mountaintop or centered, you know, if you think centered by the pool, drinking a margarita on your annual vacation. That's not the kind of centered we're talking about. It's this calm and yet alert, present and able to take action kind of awareness. So that awareness means you've cultivated that fine-tuned sense within yourself, number one. The second fundamental is attention. And that means when one of those disruptions or changes or challenges hits, are you paying attention to where your beliefs and your emotions are headed, right? Are they pulling you down kind of in a negative spiral down? Or are they actually kind of pivoting towards more expansive thoughts and beliefs and emotions? And so paying attention to your emotions and your emotional state, in particular your thoughts and beliefs that then fuel those emotions or vice versa. And then thirdly, the third fundamental is your intention. Now, when some kind of change or challenge hits us, obviously, we want to bring that awareness and that attention to a place of like, okay, what's my intent in terms of action, right? And the intention here, the nuance is you want to be able to act in a way that's congruent with the future you are seeking to create. Not react, but have an intention that acts from a place of the future we want to create. Now, again, many of you may have a practice in not only leadership, but there may be other things that you do like golf or tennis or some other sport that you play where you want to get to peak performance and you have your own practice, maybe even leveraging your breath or something else that allows you to, okay, that swing didn't work out well. All right, let me recenter myself, right? And kind of get that inner game going within myself and then take another shot at it, whatever it is that you're playing, to release the greatest performance, okay? So whatever you do in that kind of realm may have transferable application in the leadership realm. If you don't have a practice, though, one of the things that we would invite you to consider is starting with your physiology. So in the work that Dr. Carla Stanton, the functional medicine physician from the UK, and colleague and partner of mine, what she and I have created is 3 steps, essentially, that help people with the awareness, the attention, and the intention. And so first we start from a physiology first perspective of taking charge of our nervous system so we have greater, more fine-tuned awareness. on when we're centered or off center. And there's a biofeedback based way you can actually measure that. But we do that through a program that we call Reset and Rewire. Even though taking those first steps to noticing your breath and your nervous system and your heart rate variability or other markers, right, of your physiology can help you with that awareness. Then we move on to kind of refining our attention through a program on managing uncertainty, which is redefine and align. So you're redefining the changes that hit you, and from a physiology first perspective, aligning with the future that you want to create, which then makes the intention in this last step to get to greater meaning and impact by recalibrating yourself for greater impact. That's our third program, actually more expedient and efficient. So regardless, whether you have your own practice or you'd like to explore other practices that are physiology first, as I've just mentioned, the key in these three fundamentals is to make space. Make space for that awareness, that attention and intention. And by that, it does not mean that you're going to have to say, oh, I'm in an executive meeting. Sorry, everybody. Hold on. Let me just press pause. And I need about 5 minutes to meditate and recenter myself. No, this is, not Fergie. Let me be with myself and center. This is actually practicing awareness in the moment. Oh, I'm feeling a little off center. My attention is going to some very negative and somewhat frustrated and angry thoughts and beliefs and emotions. And so how might I elevate my attention in the moment? That's emotional mastery. But it's a practice that is nuanced and it takes repetition in order to get to that place of being able to respond in the moment.
Yeah, wonderful. And so for you now, let's create a little space and say, how aware are you of how centered you are right now? And if you're not quite centered, right, what attention do you need to place to your physiology, to your emotional state, to your mental thoughts, to bring yourself back into center? And what is your intention in terms of moving forward to create the habit or to enhance a habit that you're already using to keep yourself centered more often than not? Because we would encourage you to create this space frequently throughout the day, right, to check yourself on how centered you are so that you can be at your absolute best and most effective for you in what you're trying to accomplish, both from a personal perspective and from a professional environment. So please, focus on this and put this into practice. And we think it will play great dividends for you going forward to be completely centered, calm, alert, present, and active.